Okay, so my title is, and I'm really excited to talk about this because it's my favorite subject to talk about. The title is The Most Important Principle in New Thought, the Ultimate Game Changer. So what do you think it is? Again, one at a time. What? Tootsie Rolls. Right? Yes. There are no wrong answers here. Absolutely. Any others? Yellow. Yellow. Okay. Good. No, that one was wrong. I take it back. That was just way wrong. Okay. Anyone else? Dark chocolate. Good one. Yeah, I'm. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I'm gonna resolve this. That's the most important principle in New Thought. Very good. Give him a big hand. Come on, really. Somebody give me an answer here about what? God is all there is. Okay, I will accept that. Any others? Busting loose. I like that one. You know I like to talk about that, don't you? Manifesting change. Very good. Very good. I'm surprised no one got the one that I'm actually thinking of because I kind of gave it away in the meditation. Okay. There you go. There you go. Unconditional love. And you know, oneness is kind of an important concept, but I believe they're the same thing, unconditional love and oneness, right? And by the way, but what the part of love that I want to focus on, because I don't think we focus on it enough in our teaching. Okay, this thing has to be on for it to work. Ta-da. Oh, self-love. Yeah, is that important? Because here's the thing, if oneness is what our movement is about in manifesting change, but oneness I think is the highest, because if we have that experience of oneness, then all the other principles come into alignment. Yes? But the thing is, we cannot experience oneness unless we love ourselves unconditionally, because we're part of the one, right? We're part of the whole. In fact, us individually, are the most important part of the whole. We're the part, our physical or our soul being manifested into physical form is what we have come here to be responsible for and to express spirit through, right? So I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, be honest with yourself. How much, if 10 is that unconditional love you felt for the person or pet or whoever that I asked you to think of, that's a 10, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself? Okay, we'll go around the room and ask. No. I wouldn't do that to you. So it varies. What's going on in your life? Yeah, good point. What would it be like? Ponder this for a moment. If it's not a 10 already, if it were 1 digit higher, 2 digits higher. What if it were a 10? Just imagine. A 10's an ideal. It's probably not going to happen for us in this lifetime. And yet, it's a journey. It's a journey of awakening. It's a journey of that going higher and higher in the scale, right? So just imagine for a moment. What's your life like at a 10? It's a little cliche to say we can't love anyone else any more than we love ourselves, right? But we really can't love anything any more than we love ourselves. We can maybe care for someone else, like we can have that unconditional love for someone else and we're not feel it for ourselves. We can maybe care for others more, but we can't express that love. We can't actually have people feel loved by us any more than we love ourselves, right? Because if we don't love ourselves unconditionally, that love will show up in either some kind of unskillful way, right, or ineffective way, or dysfunctional way. Ever had that happen where you really love someone and it's just not being completely received because you're not doing it well, right? I had a friend who once he met who he thought it was his soulmate, and they had this, and she felt the same way. I knew them both, and they had this great relationship going. And from the outside, it looked like, wow, this is just so great that they found each other, they came together, and then it didn't take a whole lot of time, 2-3 months, and they broke up. And I asked him, so what happened? And he said, she wouldn't put up with my dysfunction. She wouldn't deal with my dysfunction. I think he used another word. I think it had something to do with bulls or bull or I don't know, something like that. But it's Sunday service, so I decided to translate. On Wednesday night, we would use the real word, But so I think I have a quote for you here. Well, I wanted to say this first, though. In the spiritual unity movement, where we have an opening ritual that we do, and we light a candle, and we say the name of God, and we say a phrase from each particular religion or faith, and as we light this candle and then sound the Om. And so the phrase for people of First Nations people of all lands is what we call it, is love is the medicine that holds all life together. Love is the medicine that holds all life together. Yeah. Isn't that true? So there's that connection between self-love and our oneness. And when I lead Native American sweat lodges, often what happens is I will feel spirit moving through me and begin speaking as spirit to the group or to individuals in the group. And what often comes forward sometimes in response to some people's prayers in this sacred prayer ceremony is I will say to someone or to the entire group as spirit, how much do you love me, spirit? How much do you love spirit? I'll ask that of you. How much do you love spirit? 100%, right? And spirit will say back, take that amount and magnify it by 1 billion, multiply it by 1 billion, that's how much I love you. And all I want for you is to love yourself more. That's all I want from you. Doesn't that just simplify the whole thing, right? Esther Hicks said, if you had one goal, and that was to feel good, you would never again need, and feel good I would say is synonymous with self-love, you would never again need to hear another word from anyone. You would live successfully and happily in a way of fulfilling your life's purpose ever after. Again, simplifies it, doesn't it? So in our teaching, having taught a good portion of our curriculum, I would say that about 60% of it is about manifesting change or manifesting what we want in our life. These are rough estimates. About 35 of it is on spirituality or spiritual practice. And I would say about 5% on self-love. Now, there may be a little more than that that might be included in spiritual practice, but specifically on addressing self-love. And I feel like we need to emphasize this more because we can only manifest to the degree that we love ourselves, that we feel worthy of receiving. Yes? And the thing is, as Esther Hicks says, if we've got the self-love thing down, if we're at 100% or we ramp it up a few notches, if we feel a high degree of self-love, then manifesting happens easily and effortlessly and without even intention. We don't even have to know all of the spiritual practices. If we have a really high, you ever meet anyone who just seems to live a charmed life and they've done no metaphysical study? Right? So what's their secret? They love themselves unconditionally, yes? That's how easy this teaching can be. And once we love ourselves, well, I just said that. Never mind. That's on my notes. Forget about my notes. Carl Rogers said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. I had a client just recently who was saying, and he says this fairly frequently to me. He said, I'm starting to get this stuff. I'm manifesting what I want. He's a brilliant guy and a really wonderful person. And he's come a long, long way. But he says, my early training is still like, driving me. I have to deprogram myself, he said. And there's nothing wrong with that, wanting to change, wanting to grow. And yet there was such a focus on getting to someplace else, right? Improving himself, that I could really feel that and I asked the question, what would it be like if you loved yourself unconditionally, right? Because as long as if we're consistently focused on where we want to get to, and that being something more than we are now, then essentially we're saying, I'm not okay the way I am, right? And as Carl Rogers says, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Only then I can change, I would add. So it's interesting, it is a paradox, because if I want to change, how can I love myself exactly as I am? If I love myself exactly as I am, why would I want to change, right? But it's a paradox. And the cool thing about a paradox is you can always simply do a both and. Just accept that, yes, I am perfect just the way I am. I love myself just the way I am. And still I want to grow. Those are the exact words in a song that was, before there was Ricky Byers Beckwith and Karen Drucker and the people who are kind of the musical leaders in our movement. Stephen Longfellow Fisk. You know Stephen? Yeah? That's the song. And still I want to grow. I love myself the way I am, and still I want to grow. So it's both. It's a both and. So this week, give me a personal example of this. This last week, I'd say the last few weeks, but especially leading up to this week, I've been feeling a little unsettled emotionally, and not sure I can really even put my finger on what it's all about. My daughters are kind of fighting, and there's got a conflict going on with someone else in my life, and so that might be part of it. But it feels like it's even deeper than that, and it's something that I haven't quite fully identified yet. And I would just call it, I guess, an uneasiness. And I was feeling a real vulnerability this last week. And I was camping from Wednesday through Saturday up till yesterday, so gave me a lot of time to think and to be with my feelings, so it opened up even more. And so I'm kind of thinking at one point, gosh, I'm feeling this vulnerable and I got to speak on Sunday. And I realized that's perfect, because I can share this with you. And so, because it is my practice, my baseline practice to love myself, to come back to that, when I'm feeling these feelings, it makes it okay. It makes everything okay. Because if I can use that, this is the spiritual practice I offer for you, is no matter what struggle or what difficulty you're having in your life, if you use it as a cue, if you use it as an opportunity to love yourself more, then everything becomes your ally. If I'm having challenging feelings, if I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling doubt, or I'm feeling pain, or even anger, I can say, oh, how can I use this to love myself more? Or simply accept it in the moment, embrace it. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. It's so amazing how easily it happens for me when the tension all dissolves, when I simply love myself for where I'm at in the moment. And isn't it kind of our human nature to do the opposite? When we feel discomfort, oh, I got to change this, right? I got to fix this. But the truth is, only when I accept it can it then dissolve into the oneness, into the infinite love. Let's take a deep breath into that. Ah, doesn't that feel good? And so I do have a quote from my favorite spiritual teacher, and some of you from Wednesday Night Alive know this guy, Swami Harbula Ananda. says on page 37 in The Magic of the Soul, which is also my favorite book, by the way, we reach for our soul to embrace perfection. When we arrive at our soul consciousness, expanded consciousness, we reach for our personality to embrace the splendor of our imperfection. The splendor of our imperfection. Can you embrace that a little bit? We see imperfection in ourselves and others as a beautiful opportunity, like parents who love their children not only in spite of their imperfections, but because of them. Right? So when we unconditionally love our children or our pet, right? But especially our children, we don't look at their weaknesses and say, oh, that's not good. I mean, it is part of our purpose as parents to raise the light out of the child, right? To provide an environment where this light can expand. And so it's part of our purpose. So if there were no weaknesses, nothing to evolve, we wouldn't have a purpose as a parent. So we love our children because of their weaknesses. Well, that's how our soul feels about our personality. And when we arrive at soul consciousness, whether it's for a period of time, whether it's for a moment in meditation, when we did the meditation this morning, then we can look at our personality and our so-called imperfections, really from a place of soul perfection, of consciousness. We don't even see them as imperfections. We see them as opportunities. And we also then see the imperfections in other people, so-called imperfections, as opportunities to serve, to bring light. Yes? And we can't love ourselves any more than we love the most unlovable parts of ourselves. Does that make sense? So, and that's what we call the shadow. The parts of ourselves that we don't like, the parts of ourselves that we have disowned. And so we're going to double dip here on our quotes from Swami Harbula. My shadow, which contains all of my weaknesses and repressed aspects of self, is the most important part of who I am. By letting out the darkness, in other words, expressing it, by allowing it to come forward, it becomes exposed to the light. Each time I'm willing to see my weaknesses honestly, so-called weakness, I would say, or in quotes, I become freer. Each time I accept and embrace my deepest inner antithesis of soul, I become more whole. Let's take a deep breath into wholeness. Doesn't that feel good? Embracing the shadow simply means, I want to bring this down to a practical level. Those of you who have done shadow work or experienced this kind of teaching know that what we haven't embraced within ourselves, we tend to project out into the world. So I thought somebody's laughing there. So why not? Because we notice how this happens, right? So the people who bother us the most in the world, it's not just because we don't like them or we don't like what they do. It's because they do something that we don't like in ourselves that we have disowned. And sometimes it's not obvious because the things that are important to us to shift and to change, those are the things that we have worked so hard to overcome, and in so doing sometimes repress. Right? So I'll give you an example. So one of my pet peeves, and it's healed so much since since this first happened, or I first noticed this, was when other people are inefficient, and it costs me time. Right? Anyone else have that one? I'm not the only one. And I realized at one point that, yeah, that's because I have disowned my own inefficiency. And I strive so much to be efficient, but in so doing, I was also fooling myself into thinking that I'm actually more efficient than I am. Okay, this is a true confession here. I used to perform a lot of weddings, and I actually did not show up for a wedding once. That's worse than a musician not showing up. I didn't show up for a wedding, and I actually had it rationalized in my mind where it was not a lack of efficiency on my part. Isn't it great how well we can fool ourselves, right? At least I'm good at it. And fortunately, the couple, the wedding was was being held like 15 minutes from my house, and it was on either Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. I think it was New Year's Eve, and that was my rationalization. Well, it's a day off, right? And so they called me, and fortunately I answered the phone, and I ran to a phone booth and put on my robe and got my ass over there as quickly as I could. And yeah. So projecting what we haven't owned within ourselves onto other people. So it would really bug me. It would really bug me when other people are inefficient. I've healed that to a really high degree. Test me on it. No, please don't. please don't. So, here's the other spiritual practice, or maybe it's the same one expressed in a different way. And this is what I say to my clients all the time. You know, my clients, most of my coaching clients come to me because they want to accomplish something in their life. But what I tend to emphasize in my coaching, because again, we cannot create fulfillment to any greater degree than we love ourselves or feel worthy of receiving that fulfillment. So the major emphasis of my coaching is helping people to love themselves more. And so what I often say to people is this phrase, I love myself no matter what. Because it's easy to love ourselves when something really cool happens, like we get a new job, we just meet a new boyfriend or girlfriend, or we just did something that made us $10,000 extra. But what about when you make a mistake that cost you $20,000? Or you say something that really hurts someone that you care about? Can you love yourself in that moment? That's the true test of self-love, yes? So I love myself no matter what. What if we said that every time we feel any level of discomfort, any time we start to judge ourselves or criticize ourselves, I love myself no matter what. I often ask people, what would your life look like if it was 100% devoid of critical self-judgment? Yeah, what would it look and feel like? I love myself no matter what, just the way I am. Still, I want to grow. So, I'll tell you a little story. Some of you might have heard this one. So there's this farmer who has this huge tragedy occur. His donkey falls into his well, and big well, obviously. And so he tries everything he can to get this donkey out. He puts ropes down there. He calls his neighbors over. They're all trying to hoist him out. Nothing is working. He decides, it's a really old donkey, and I kind of need to dig a new well anyway. I think I'm just going to, we're just going to cover it up, right? And he feels horrible about it, but he thinks it's just the practical thing to do. So they all start shoveling dirt into the well, and the donkey is now just screaming and going crazy, and because he sees what's going on here. This is kind of a sad story, isn't it? All right. Well, maybe it'll have a happy ending. Maybe it'll have a happy ending that turns into a sad ending. We'll see. So so they're shoveling, and the donkey's screaming, and then all of a sudden it stops screaming. And they get kind of fused and so they're shoveling and they're looking down, and the donkey's doing something very interesting. Each time a shovel of dirt comes down on his back, he shakes it off, and then he steps up. And this happens over and over. They keep they're shoveling faster and faster. The donkey is shaking it off faster and faster and stepping up each time. And finally, the donkey arrives at the top of the well, steps out, and everyone celebrates. So the moral of the story is that, what was that? He still had to dig a well. That's looking on the bright side. I love myself no matter what. Okay, thank you for, see, we get to practice this all the time. So thank you for adding that. So the moral is, life is going to shovel a whole lot of stuff on you. But each time, if we shake ourselves up and step up, it gets better. And don't just feel the self-esteem in that for the donkey, right? He was completely in touch with his feelings. He wasn't afraid to express his feelings and scream about what was happening. And maybe it wouldn't even led to this really effective strategy if he would have resisted his feelings, right? And then can you feel the self-esteem in just shaking it off and stepping up? It's all about self-esteem, all about self-love. But there is one part of the story I didn't tell you yet. The donkey, not being a completely and totally enlightened donkey, decides to get revenge and bites his farmer owner in the behind. The bite gets infected and the farmer dies. You thought it was going to be a happy ending, didn't you? And so the other moral of the story then is, you can try to cover your ass all you want, but it's going to come back and bite you in the end. Okay, so Debbie Ford said, it's not a donkey joke. Okay, so Debbie Ford, who, if you don't know, was considered like the queen of shadow work, yes? She died a couple years ago of cancer. And she said, please tell people, this was an email that went around, I don't know who was quoting her. Someone else was quoting her. And they said that she said, please tell people, this was like on her deathbed, this was the last few days of her life, please tell people that they do not cause their own illness. It's a ridiculous notion that creates so much needless pain. All illness, including my cancer, is an invitation to love ourselves more, she insisted. And then with her signature shadow laugh, she added, the truth is, in the end, that's what life is all about anyway, learning to love ourselves more. So my encouragement to you is to join me in this practice and to love yourself no matter what, to choose joy. That's another way that we demonstrate self-love, is to choose on a daily basis to do what brings you the most joy, to embrace all of your feelings, to recognize that you are okay, you are perfect just the way you are each and every moment. Love yourself no matter what. Thank you. I love you.